After a procedure gives him the superhuman abilities to scream at sonic levels and cause hallucinations in others, Angar uses them to become a criminal for hire, always looking for the next job. After his activist days for peace and love ended with a whimper, Angar volunteers to get hooked up to a machine created by the technologists of Titan, brought to Earth by Heather Douglas, aka Moondragon. It bombards his vocal cords with hypersound and triggers a mutagenic change in his voice mechanism, endowing it with very special properties. Angar undergoes the operation under the auspices of crooked lawyer Kerwin J. Broderick. Broderick needs Angar to be an operative against masked vigilante Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, and super spy Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow. Angar vocally emits piercing screams that create hallucinogenic effects in those who hear them. His screams sonically stimulate the chemicals of the brain, creating natural toxins that induce hallucinations and sometimes amnesia. Angar cannot control the specific content of his victims' hallucinations. Instead, they are products of the victim's own subconscious. His power does tend to induce psychotic and nightmarish fantasies, however. Angar's scream will affect anyone within the sound of his voice to some degree. The closer one is to the source, the longer one will hallucinate. Recovery time for the average human being standing 50 feet from his scream is approximately 1 hour, and standing 3 feet from him is approximately 12 hours. Angar screams at an amplitude of 180 decibels, in the gigacycle range. The audible portion of his scream, but a harmonic of the full range of sound produced, is around 138 dB. He can cause permanent damage to those standing too close to him. Angar is immune to the toxic effects of his own power. His vocal cords have more stamina than normal humans. He can scream at maximum power for over an hour, pausing only for breath. When Angar and Melissa Gold, aka Songbird, harmonize their screams, they can craft specific predetermined illusions seen by anyone with normal hearing within earshot. When he becomes a sonic entity, that is a being of solid sound, he could reform himself when dissipated by others. In this form, he did not need sustenance or sleep, nor breath. He could still control the sound around him, using it against his opponents sometimes as a weapon. Angar goes up against heroes such as Black Widow, Daredevil, Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, and the Avengers. While working for Master Khan, he brainwashes detective and martial arts master Colleen Wing and destroys her father's memories with his scream. Though Colleen broke his conditioning and disables him before he could use his scream again. Angar partners with Melissa Gold, aka Screaming Mimi, later Songbird, against several Avengers. Though Mimi briefly joins female supremacist Superior's Femazon's army, she remains loyal to Angar, falling in love with him despite that he views her only as a professional asset. When Angar's employer Broderick ordered him to destroy his enemy Daredevil, Angar discovered rather painfully that Broderick had installed a remote-controlled activator attuned to an electrode implanted in Angar's skull. Broderick used it to control Angar into submission. As such, Angar had no choice but to challenge Daredevil to a fight. Despite losing that battle, Angar then used his powers later on Black Widow to turn her against the hero. After the pair began working together against Angar, he used his abilities to escape, but not before Daredevil talked him down from murder. When Moondragon returned to Earth, she was ready to activate Angar and her other creations, Messiah and Ramrod. Meanwhile, Angar was out and about with his girlfriend Janice and came upon T-Rex, who with his powers had killed Janice just by being near her. Angar sought revenge and ended up at a fight happening between T-Rex, who had allied with Broderick, against Daredevil, and Marvel, aka Captain Marvel. Angar used his powers against T-Rex and Moondragon intervened, boosting his abilities beyond his typical range. They all worked together to trap T-Rex in a void. Broderick also perished, likely from being so close to Angar's screams. Angar then served Master Khan. Angar resided in Halwan. Under Master Khan's orders, Angar the Screamer attacked the Wing family, his sonic hallucinations leaving Li Wing traumatized, while his daughter Colleen was kidnapped as bait to lure Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist, into a trap. While Danny saved Li's life, Li blanked out the experience to retain his sanity, forgetting he had a daughter. Khan had Colleen transported to his fortress in Halwan's Jar Ad Alden Mountains, where Angar spent months torturing and brainwashing her into a psychotic hatred of Danny. Danny eventually located Colleen and tried to rescue her, but she attacked him. He used his iron fist to break her conditioning, and she attacked Angar with her samurai sword, slicing him across his stomach. Master Khan disappeared into a rift. Angar later worked for the mob, and when police caught wind of him, he screamed to escape. Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, happened to be nearby and remembered what happened after a bounty was out for his capture. When Spider-Woman found his hideout later, she intended to take him in on orders from Scotty McDowell, who informed her of the bounty on Angar's head. Angar unleashed a scream when faced with Spider-Woman, but she had immunity to it, and she defeated him. Though later, Angar became the prisoner of the locksmith, and Spider-Woman liberated him and others that had been captured. After being released from the vault, a maximum security prison for superhumans, Angar joined Screaming Mimi to rob banks. They disguised themselves as Hawkeye and Mockingbird, but the actual pair caught and defeated them. Later, while robbing a bank, Angar was shot. Angar and Mimi escaped into the nearby woods, but he lost too much blood and died. A grief-maddened Mimi went on a destructive screaming rampage that almost completely ruined her voice. Angar was later examined by Paul Ebersol, aka The Fixer, and resurrected as a sonic entity simply called Scream. He joined the Redeemers, a super-villain team that went up against the Destructin, Dr. Doom, and Franklin Hall, aka Graviton. Graviton defeated Scream, but he returned as Angar and began absorbing the sound around him. Mimi was there, as Songbird, and as he destroyed and shield aircraft, she stopped him from doing any more damage by absorbing him into her carapace and then smashed it, killing him. Though, this end wasn't the end for Angar. He reappeared resurrected again and having dinner with Thursday Rubenstein, aka Ruby Thursday.